Meeting halfway between two worlds is more of a struggle than we can ever understand, unless we are also in the same place. These two worlds are the deaf and hearing world. I'm in the hearing world, and so are you. We can never understand the deaf world, but we can try. Many hearing people believe we can fix a deaf person with surgery, the cochlear implant. However, this surgery is more than just a cut and healing process. Being deaf does not mean a lack of language and hearing. Instead, it is a gain in culture and community. This can all be taken away with a cochlear implant. There is a better solution for everyone that doesn't involve taking away culture and identity. It is that individual's decision. However, many hearing people don't always understand why deaf people don't get a cochlear implant, and many of us support it and make the decision for children without fully understanding it. I have completed internet research as to why a cochlear implant is not always the best choice for a deaf person. I am currently majoring in interpreting at CCBC and have spent numerous hours studying deaf culture, American Sign Language, and have been involved in the deaf community. Today, I will persuade you by sharing with you reasons to not pursue a cochlear implant for a deaf person. Cochlear implants are not the solution for a deaf person to have a well-rounded life. Instead, it creates disappointing effects. There is a better solution that involves embracing the deaf community, culture, and language. A cochlear implant is not the answer to making a deaf person into a hearing person, and it will create disappointing effects. A cochlear implant is a device that is surgically implemented. It is different from the hearing aid in the sense that it does not amplify sound, but instead replaces the function of a damaged cochlea by sending sound signals directly to the brain. You may believe that a cochlear implant will give the deaf person the gift of hearing and the ability to communicate with servers or talk on the phone. This is not the case. The following is researched information given by the National Association of the Deaf. A quote from the NAD says, "Cochlear implantation is a technology that represents a tool to be used in some forms of communication and is not a cure for deafness. Cochlear implants provide sensitive hearing, but do not, by themselves, impart the ability to understand spoken language through listening alone." The NAD lays it out. A cochlear implant is not a fix for a deaf person, nor does it create an effective bridge for communication. The brain must be trained to recognize sounds as words, and these words do not sound like how you hear my voice right now. Michael Dorman, a writer for the American Scientist, had described a cochlear implant in one of his past articles about 10 years ago. Most recently, he writes an article titled "New Brain Insights from Cochlear Implants." This article is what it sounds like for a deaf person with one ear hearing and the other one with a cochlear implant. He describes it as sounding like this. Dorman says, "We have now tested other single-sided deaf patients and find that most generally, this sound quality is one characteristic of what is undoubtedly their multidimensional perception of sound." A cochlear implant may improve the hearing of a deaf person, but does not necessarily create a fair communication method. From an article called "Cochlear Implants," provided by American Academy of Otolaryngology, Head and Neck Surgery, it states, "While cochlear implants do not restore normal hearing, and benefits vary from one individual to another, most users find that cochlear implants help them communicate better through improved lip reading." Why should a deaf person be forced to use the hearing language? Is a more successful lip reading the goal? Lip reading is not a language. It is not an effective communication method. Deaf people are forced to attempt lip reading because they live in a hearing world. Catherine Bouton shares her experience with a cochlear implant in her article called "Cochlear Implants Are Miraculous and Maddening." She states that, "I rely heavily on my right hearing aided ear, and I continue to have great difficulty with the vowel sounds." After time and money spent on a cochlear implant, she still relies more so on her hearing aid. Another quote from Catherine is, "I can hear the rustling in the palm trees, but not when my husband is saying in the beach chair next to me." So what is the point of a cochlear implant in your eyes? Maybe it is a solution to a better communication, or to hear the leaves underneath your feet. However, after considering the statements above, you now see that many of us had the wrong impression of a cochlear implant. There is a solution, however, that maybe you have not considered. The solution does not include surgery or strain on the ears and brain. By embracing culture and identity, deaf people have a quality of life that you can't compare to a mechanical cochlea. For a deaf person, to have a great quality life, it does not require surgery or false cochlea. This life is achieved by embracing in deaf culture and
Oh no, what happened?
Deaf culture is very different from hearing culture. However, we can choose to join the two worlds together or tear them apart. Choosing to learn American Sign Language, supporting deaf schools, and interpreters are all ways we can create a great world for both deaf and hearing individuals. Being an interpreting major, I have been exposed to amazing community and culture through my knowledge of ASL. To clarify, I am not encouraging everyone to become an interpreter or even fluent in the language. However, just knowing some ASL can help bridge the gap. However, I strongly persuade you to reevaluate your perspective on the deaf culture. Being deaf is not a disability, and deaf people are not the inconvenience. We are. The majority of deaf people know written English. They are bilingual. However, most hearing people in the United States only know one language, English. In high school, we are supposed to take a foreign language. Normally, kids will choose French, Italian, or Spanish. Think back to high school. Did you ever really practice that language? And how much of it do you remember? For most of you, your answer was probably not much. Learning a language we will never use is a waste of time and money. Instead, we should be learning American Sign Language, which will come in handy at any moment of our everyday life. Another part of the solution to creating a better world for deaf people is creating an environment where not only deaf adults can live and prosper, but where deaf children can learn. Many employers see deaf people as disabled and believe they cannot perform the same tasks as hearing people. This is discrimination. Deaf people can do anything a hearing person can do, even answer the telephone with the use of a video relay service. Many states only have one school for deaf children, and some of them combine deaf and blind children together. This is not effective because being deaf and being blind are completely different things. In Maryland, there is only one program where you can learn how to be an interpreter. No, it's not a four-year college, it's Community College of Baltimore County. We need more certified interpreters. Most people who interpret do not have a formal education and give the deaf and hearing consumer unequal communication. As for culture and community, we should put more time into learning about the culture right here in our own country. Just as we study about Black people's history, women's history, so we should study deaf people's history. There is deaf culture where we don't even see it. The statue of Abraham Lincoln in Washington, D.C. has his hands placed to sign his initials A and L. You may be wondering what you can do to create a deaf-friendlier world. I have your answers. To start, if you are attending AACC, there are ASL classes offered there. I have taken ASL classes at AACC with Professor Larry Gray and encourage you to do the same. Your life will be enhanced and will give you knowledge of endless opportunity. If you know someone that is deaf, attempt communication with them. Do not count them out or ignore them. Educate yourself on understanding both the culture and community. You may believe deaf people are missing out on music or the sound of ocean waves, but as hearing people, we are missing out on a whole community and culture that is right under our nose. Now that you are more aware of what a cochlear implant is, you can understand why it is not the best choice for a deaf person. Do not choose to force a deaf person to lip read or feel uncomfortable in the hearing world by believing a cochlear implant will fix them. Deaf people are not broken and do not need a cure. They are people who want to express themselves, just as you or I. Combine our two worlds by learning ASL and encouraging education on the community and culture. Take a step into the deaf world, and I promise your life will be enriched with a vibrant community, strong culture, and deeper understanding of the world around you that will change your life forever.